Hello, welcome to Sproutlogic Gardening. My name's Mike. Today we continue our mini-series, Winter Garden Planning. Specifically, we'll be covering timing when it comes to planting. So, let's dive into it. When we talk about timing, there's really three things I want to address with you. And the first one's going to be your frost dates. Second is your planting periods. And third, of course, is going to be all about succession planning. So the first one we'll talk about, which is those frost dates, if you get anything out of this video, this is the real big one. Don't take frost dates as the absolute word, meaning that, oh, if it says the last week of March, that's the last frost date, we're good to go. Don't do it. I've fallen for this plenty of times. The cost is dead plants, stunted plants, and simply loss of time. So what I typically do and what I recommend when you're doing your research, take that last frost date. So let's say, for example, it's the last week in March. I will have plants already started to plan to have them roll out on that date. However, I hold them inside for 2 weeks and I let that go until middle of April. From there, I put them out, no harm, no foul. And actually, if you wanted to, use that 2-week period to kind of strengthen your plants, put them outside during the day, expose them to the temperatures, really get them fortified and ready to go to be placed outside. That's the best piece of advice I can give you when it comes to that. Don't count it as a solid thing. Look at the weather, look at what's happening in your local area, especially with the way things have been. Like I look at this season, it's winter right now, and it's roughly about almost 60 degrees. That's pretty warm and about 10, 15 degrees above average. So you have to be careful. Those frost dates will absolutely get you. So that pretty much covers frost dates. I'd say just don't count it as a solid 100% thing. Use it more as a guideline. Give yourself a little bit of buffer. Do yourself a favor. The next thing is those planting periods. And there's really three I can break it down into individually. You got early, recommended, and late. So we'll start with early. Early is a complete classic dice roll. You are gambling. So let's say on the seed packet it says this thing can go out last week in March. You look around, it's, let's say the beginning of March, you're like, yeah, I like my chances. It's been warm. The temperatures look like it's going to be very warm. I'm going to put it out. Two things happen. One, you win. The plant starts earlier. It gets a bigger growing season. Probably looks a lot better and has a longer kind of growth pattern to go along with it. Great. It's perfect. The flip side, more likely what you're going to experience. The plant's stunted, dead. You lose that time. This has happened to me. I tried to roll the dice with tomatoes. I tried to put them out too early. Surprise, surprise. They were dead. Most of them died. The one that survived didn't really do much. So I lost all that time and had to basically go buy a plant that was ready to go to replace it. So just something to keep in mind. I typically recommend against that early period. Now, speaking of recommended period, that's going to be the time we want to plant. So again, we're keeping in mind frost dates. If for some reason the frost date falls on the recommended or it's close, play it by ear. But that recommended period, this plant grows typically best between spring and summer. Great. That's the period you'll stick to. That works out the best for you. You can always start indoors, start early. That's fine. But put it out during that recommended period because that gives you the best chance of success when you're talking about planting things. The alternative is, again, that lost time, starting over again, and having possibly a blank spot in your garden where that thing was supposed to be. So that kind of covers the recommended. Now, late's another, we'll call it a gamble. Typically, let's say, the latest period you can probably put out those tomatoes is summer. But it's been a really hot summer, and fall's looking pretty warm too. So you're at the end of summer, and you decide, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to plant these tomatoes out. Again, it's the same thing kind of as early, right? You could end up with extra tomatoes, maybe a better bloom, a longer bloom, or you could end up with a dead plant. So keeping in mind, both those options, the first and the last, are really just a gamble. It's entirely up to you. And experience can really help you in making this decision as well. You may have lived in your area for a very long time. You understand it. You do plenty of research on weather and stuff. That'll lessen the impact for both those options, but doesn't eliminate it entirely, which is why I think it's incredibly important to call out. So when we're thinking about that, is it worth the risk? So that pretty much covers when we're talking about the planting periods. And you can get those off of your seeds. You can get them off of online, wherever resource you're using. That'll usually give you the generalized area of when to plant something. Now, the next topic we'll dive into here is going to be all about that succession planning. What is succession planning? Well, you plant things like, let's say I have lupin going in one of my beds over there that I planted seeds. I know that lupin will be gone by the end of spring. Too warm here, zone 7B/8A, it'll be burnt up and finished. So what I do is I plan to start some seedlings inside for something else that'll step in when that plant is done to fill its space and to continue going forward. This can be done with flowers, um, you know, vegetables, anything like that, not a problem. You can just plan this out. It's a very good thing to get into and a very good habit to kind of be informing, because the alternative is you plant a bunch of things that maybe are only good for spring and your garden's empty. Or maybe you plant things that are only good for summer and the garden's pretty bare in the spring. So it kind of prevents that. The best way you can do that, and one of the tools that I use, and I've mentioned it, is actually ChatGPT. I will lay out the seeds and things I want to plant throughout the whole season. It'll give me a complete breakdown. I recommend you plant this now, plant this in April, and it gives me that whole succession plan all the way down the line to make sure that I'm good to go. And it gives me reminders. I know when I need to do these things, because let's be honest, life is hectic. And keeping up with when to plant things can be extremely difficult, and it's easy to forget. So succession planning simply is making a plan for the whole year, not just the first couple things you want to plant out. So you're taking into account the spring season, summer, and then fall. And some of these plants cross into both, maybe even all three. Just depends on what you're planting. But those are the main three things I want to kind of cover with you today when it comes to the timing and planning based on that. Now, I do have something else we need to do today, which is actually planting out some seeds, speaking of timing and planting. So based on my garden plan, I have sweet pea seeds, and actually more specifically, the sweet pea flowers that I need to plant. And I need to get those into the ground. So yeah, we should probably get to work on that. All right, so what you see here is my raised bed that I'll be putting those sweet pea flower seeds into. Right off the bat, you notice that prep work we talked about in previous episodes has been done. There's mulch on this. I added some stuff to the soil. This dianthus is apparently bulletproof. I thought it was going to be an annual. It's doing great. I ended up actually having to move it forward. I didn't want to take it out of the bed. I just didn't have the heart to do it. So I moved it forward to give me room for the sweet pea seeds I'll be planting. Now, more specifically, I'm using Eden Brothers Sweet Pea Seeds, the Royal Mix. And I'm going to be doing some aggressive kind of planting. And so I'm going to basically put 4 in here. That's pretty tight. Now, I would say that that's a little tighter than we want to go with normally, but I want it to be very, very thick and vigorous throughout here. I'll be putting up a trellis later on in the season to help it kind of grow off of, because sweet peas absolutely need some sort of a trellis or something to grow off of. Otherwise, the vines will just be everywhere. You're going to get nothing. So these seeds, I went ahead and I actually put them in water for 24 hours, and I also nicked the seed coat. This is very important. So what I'm going to do, might as well get started here, is I'm going to push the mulch a little bit aside, and I'm probably going to thin the mulch out where I'm putting these. That's also very important. Poke a little hole in here. Okay, we'll drop it in. Let's cover it up. And I'm going to thin the mulch. Very important. Have your labels ready so you know where you put them. Nothing is worse than thinking you have a seedling coming up and it's a weed. Happens to the best of us. So I'll basically repeat this process here. So I'm going to move down a little bit over here, grab a seed. And I can tell the mulch is working. The soil actually feels very nice and pretty warm and stable, which is what we want. Thin that out a little bit, and I'll plant another label. Something I wasn't good at in the past was, in fact, labeling. I would often not do that, and I would have all kinds of fun where I would think something's a seedling and it's a weed, or vice versa. I would think that's a weed and it's actually a seedling that I forgot, or a seed that I put in. So super important to keep track of that. I got one more to go. So that'll be pretty much it for the sweet peas. I'm going to get them in the ground here. We're going to let them do their thing. It's a perfect time of year for them. These like to be started outside. You can plant them indoors and start them indoors, but they're not exactly happy with that. They prefer to be started outside. So that'll cover planting, and this is really the first official seed I'm basically planting for the season. I have put some things out already in my other series. You probably noticed 2026 planting for the season, but we have one more topic to cover, which I think is also really important. All right, so last topic: cold season crops, warm season crops. Two totally different things that can be grown, obviously, during different times of the year. So what defines a cold season crop? Something like broccoli rabe, certain cabbages, those types of plants prefer a colder season. Sometimes you start them in fall, winter, spring. That's typically where they'll grow their best. When you start hitting the warm season, that's where they start either bolting or simply dying. So that's going to really define your cold weather crops. And that's the stuff you want to start, possibly in fall, winter, or spring. You're starting them ahead. It keeps the garden going throughout the entire year. Then we got something like tomatoes. Tomatoes are a classic warm weather crop. They do not like cold. If you put them out too early, you stunt them or you kill them. Plain and simple. They just won't grow. They won't do well. So they really need that warmer weather that summer typically provides. Now, depending on where you live in different seasons you have, in the zones, you got to keep this into account, right? Like you got to think about, okay, can I put this out now in spring? Maybe we have warmer springs than other places would. Always do your research, understand what that plant needs. What's the average temperature it needs, outdoors? Also, what's the temperature of the soil that things need to be? That's something to take into account for both of these. Is it too cold? Is it too warm? What is it? What exactly could be the problem? So you want to keep that in your mind when you're kind of planning out these different things. Cold season speaks for itself, prefers the cold. Warm season wants that warmer weather. And then, of course, what's your ambient temperature outside? So, a couple things to mention when we're talking about these different seasonal crops, we'll call them, or seasonal plants that you'll put out. I'm hoping this video helps. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. And of course, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Really appreciate that. It helps me kind of build my channel and grow further beyond this and provide you more content. And of course, we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.